don't fall for any of 45's lies. The Democrats have been more productive than he's ever been. 45, master of the purposeful falsehood, complains that instead of attending to the people's businesses, Democrats do nothing but investigate the squatter. Senate Majority Leader Turtle McConnell echoes such claims and has become a conventional critic of conservatives. Columnist David Brooks tweeted after the impeachment vote, instead of spending the past 3 years on Mueller and impeachment, suppose 45 opponents had spent the time on an infrastructure bill or early childhood education, more good would have been done. With media coverage fixated on the 45 circus and on impeachment, voters have little sense that anything is to be accomplished from 45, but 45's insult of Democrats is a lie. The reality is that the House Democrats have been extraordinarily productive, passing nearly 400 bills by mid-November. About 225 of them had bipartisan support and are sitting on the desk of Republican leader Moscow Mitch, who will not allow debate or votes. The majority leader boasts that he is the Grim Reaper of House legislation. Moscow Mitch's obstruction of Obama's agenda was infamous. Now he is doubling down against measures passed by the Democratic House majority. Republican politicians argue that Washington is dysfunctional and then prove their case by making it so. This serves their ideological interest and rewards their special interest and supporters. Consider by contrast that many House-passed bills would make a real difference in the lives of ordinary Americans. The Wage Act, which the House passed in July, will lift the wages of nearly 40 million workers over the next few years, according to the Economic Policy Institute. The Protecting the Right to Organize Act, passed by the House last week, would help level the playing field for workers and collective bargaining at a time when CEO salaries are soaring, while workers' wages are stagnant and right-to-work laws cripple the organization efforts. These bills would dramatically affect those people's lives. The Paycheck Fairness Act, passed last March, would help close the gender pay disparity, a change that is vital for the growing number of families who rely on women's wages to make ends meet. While the 45 administration continues to torpedo the Affordable Care Act in the courts, the Democratic-led House passed a bill that would independently require insurance companies to protect those with pre-existing conditions. It also passed bipartisan legislation outlawing various tricks by which drug companies impede the distribution of less expensive generics. To strengthen voters' rights and election integrity, the House passed the For the People Act, which would curb the role of big money in politics and end partisan gerrymandering, enact automatic and same-day voter registration, bolster the Voting Rights Act, and more. Not surprisingly, Moscow Mitch, whose Republican Party has sought to suppress voter access in states across the country, won't let that come to a vote in the Senate. For a more just America, the House passed bills extending civil rights protections to the lesbian, gay, bisexual, transgender community, and providing Dreamers with a path to citizenship. Again, no vote has been allowed in the Senate. To counter 45's dereliction of duty on climate change, the House passed the Climate Action Now Act, essentially returning the United States to the Paris Climate Agreement after 45 announced its withdrawal. The House has passed a bipartisan bill calling for universal background checks, which 45 intimated he might support before hearing irate complaints from the National Rifle Association. Also passed was the Consumers First Act, strengthening the Consumer Financial Protection Bureau and reversing 45's administration efforts to disembowel it amid big bank assaults. Even when the Senate has acted, such as when Congress passed a joint resolution to end U.S. support of Saudi Arabia's savaging of Yemen, 45 has thwarted forward motion, in this case vetoing the resolution. The list can go on, but the Republican big lie is clear. It isn't that the Democratic-led House has done nothing but what 45, Mitch McConnell, and other Republicans in the Senate have blocked almost everything, and they are proud of this obstruction. During his Clan of the Union address, 45 talked about lowering costs of prescription drugs. The House had passed an H.R. 3 would do just that. 45 called for turning to infrastructure, but recalled that the squatter is the person who blew up the meeting with Democratic leaders that was convened to move on infrastructure. Even as the House passed its articles of impeachment, It also passed 45's retold NAFTA trade accord with Mexico and Canada after insisting on changes that would strengthen the position of workers and cut special privileges given to drug companies. The theory of the big lie is simple. Most people will believe a big lie sooner than a little one. Repeat a lie frequently, and sooner or later people would assume it's true. 45 has proved that to be a master of the purposeful falsehood. Truth is the antidote to the conundrum of the big lie. That's why freedom of the press is essential. An independent media can puncture big lies rather than repeat them. Dysfunction should not be relegated to fact-check columns. It is a central responsibility of a free press. Surely it's long past time to call out Turtle, Moscow Mitch, and 45 on their preposterous lies about Democrats.